Hi everybody, welcome to Analyze This, the class that finally starts. So today we're going to start with Julian's game, and he was black against someone who is known as Not-Julian. We don't know who it is. The guy said today was 1900. So we're going to analyze it, and we're going to actually do it. We can't do it the proper way, because the proper way to do it is to analyze it once by yourself and try to think of the best way, the best moves and everything without outside assistance. And then I like to do it while I'm adding like stockfish in the background for blunder check and to see, assessments, although of course you cannot count on the opponent on the computer for openings. Here, without the benefit of having super time to do the game properly, we're going to pretend that we've gone over it, and we're going to start analyzing it with cheating. So we have e4, oh yeah, of course, e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, so far so normal, takes, knight f6, knight c3. Okay, he actually played knight f6, knight c3 first to avoid any lines with f3, I suppose. Sometimes, one of the things that I used to do in this position, after d4, if they take, knight f6, I play f3, which is not a great line, but it can be a surprise for a lot of people. So nowadays, very popular is to play the move order knight f6, and really white has nothing better than play knight c3, and then pawn takes, we have transposed. But we get to this position anyways. And your opponent plays the move a6. So we have a knight of Sicilian. So you play the move a6, and we still have a knight of Sicilian. Okay. So I'll very briefly explain a little bit, really on the tip of a fork, like they say, the idea of the move a6, because this move looks like a very strange move. Well, the original idea was to play the move e5 in this position. But if you play the move e5, white has a very good opportunity to play the move bishop to b5 check. And the reason is that now this vacates the f5 square for the knight without being captured. So whether you block the bishop this way, or if you play this with the bishop, whatever you do, my knight is going to end up on the f5 square. So for example, if we see a line like this, like this, like this, and like this, and again, if black does nothing, then white will go bishop g5, take the knight, go knight e3, and put the horse on d5 forever. It's going to be a tremendous game for white. There's no question about that. That's very easy to see. If he is going to end up against this bishop, that bishop will be no comparison. So then they realized that this is a favorable variation for white, and Najdorf decided that he is going to better the plan by playing a6. He can afford to play excuse me, a loss of a tempo, because a6 is a pretty relevant move in the Sicilian anyways, because it supports b5 and it stops knight d to b5 in some line. It's a very logical move. So now white says to himself, okay, do I allow e5 or not? So in this game, white plays a move that discourages e5 very much. He played the move bishop to g5, one of the main lines. If we had hours, maybe we could discuss some other moves, but it's for a fact that when you play a move like bishop to e3 or bishop to e2, black has the choice of playing e6 or e5 in the spirit of the Najdorf. After bishop g5, however, e5 becomes a move that's less desirable, because as you can see, that goes directly into a pin, and again, d5 is completely owned by white. It's just illogical. So the normal move to play is to play e6, just to avoid lines with bishop takes f6, but here black played the lesser known knight bd7, although very playable line. And to tell you I'm an expert on this line will be a total lie, because this is really one of the wildest lines. But in the old days, and let me see if I'm correct about it when I'll check it with a reference, the most challenging move to this idea was to play the move bishop c4. And did your opponent play that, or did he play something else? He played bishop e2, okay. So not the most dangerous time. But now this is a good time to hit reference. And reference should usually, like I said, should be connected to a good database. And here, now, here it's a good idea if you see in the bottom right, you see it says top games. So it's very smart to hit top games, because with all respect to old chess players, I really don't care what Rufus and Doofus, who are rated about 3.5 points versus 3.5 points played. I prefer to see what the strong players played. So now I see up on top that every logical move has been played recently, including recently, up to 2010, because this is how updated this database is. Like buying yesterday's paper. So you can see that the main move is bishop c4, played by Rad, and then Rajapov. You see all the big names on top. but all the way to the bottom, even a move like, a common move like, not common, but a quiet move like g3 was played by Nabati. Nabati is an Israeli grandmaster, pretty decent player. In 2010, maybe he wasn't a grandmaster, but still an up-and-coming youngster. And we can see here a bunch of interesting games. So now, two things can happen. If you are really interested in this, in searching the opening, then it's a very wise idea to look at the options, to look at games and all kinds of moves. And then we select our move, bishop e2, and we see all the possible answers. Okay, this is also a high time to bring our cousin Stockfish 5 into the fray. Okay, you can already see that bishop e2 lost a lot of the credence here, right? Before with bishop c4, we would have had lots of games and strong grandmasters. You can choose Nakamura and all this. Here you already lost all of them. So what can you do? So you decided to play the move e6. Okay, very legitimate. Okay, I can't complain. Your opponent, did he do something? He castled. Okay, so already I can tell you that we have transposed into a variation in the Scheveningen defense. It's a line in the Sicilian, where white is playing a somewhat of a hybrid system. He brings his bishop to e2, castle kingside, but he put the bishop on g5. That's almost always not a good idea, because he's basically mixing the system. The idea of bishop g5 is to castle queenside for white. So the normal line would have been to try to play a variation with a bishop to c4, and many times, to try to bring the queen up and then castle go left. Now, when you castle here, it's going to be awfully hard to send your pawns attacking here. And if you wanted to attack with your pawns here, then why is your bishop in the way? Like, the best plan in the Scheveningen for white is to put the bishop on e3, or to put it back on c1, doesn't matter. And to play f4, and then at some point to play g4 and g5. Now, all of a sudden, this plan is kind of out. So, not very smart. So, I think you played bishop e7, which is the most normal move, no complaint about that. And now your opponent decided to play the move bishop to e3. Am I right?
Yep.
So, of course, this move is not going to be mentioned in the reference, because nobody in his right mind will play bishop g5 with the idea of bishop e3. But I can already tell you, oh wait, a4, oh, e4 was the game in the reference, right?
Yeah.
I forgot that I didn't have to put, okay, so bishop e3. All right, so, okay. So you can see already that the reference went blank. That means you have no games to look at. Now you're basically independent. That's a new position, okay? Or at least on this database, nobody played it. So I can go back to notation, doesn't really matter. You can see the reference. Actually, I like to leave reference on, because sometimes you can see like a blank reference, and then as the game progresses, it transposes to a known position, then games can somehow appear. Probably it's not going to happen here, but it's still worth doing it. So we have bishop e3. Basically, after black castles, which he does, we have a theoretical position. That's not what I meant. Very good. We have a theoretical position where black is playing up a tempo, because white went bishop to g5, and then he went bishop to e3. Of course, since the position is quite playable for black, now it's even more playable. So, let's see what white did. Did he play f4 eventually? Not yet. He plays queen d2. Okay, in itself a reasonable move, I think. And you played queen c7. Of course, black wants to play the move b5, but b5 in this position will be a very, very bad idea, both because of knight c6, forking the queen and the bishop. That's really a silly idea to give up this bishop for this knight. This is such a good defensive bishop. And also there are ideas of bishop f3 on the long diagonal, and white threatens to play e5, which is, again, not something that we want to do. Although normally that happens when this knight is back home. Now with the knight is here, maybe the knight can come to e5. But okay, can't argue with the move queen c7. Queen c7 is a very good move. Okay, so far black is playing this game perfectly. I have no complaints. f4, very nice. If you notice on the right side, we can see that we have games joining us. Somehow this transposed into something normal. But if you think that this is great for white, then I suggest you look what Stockfish thinks about it. Already he thinks that black is considerably better. And he has to play the move b5, and of course, black played b5. So again, if you're just optically looking at the position, we can already see that black, who usually has his initiative on the queen side and tries to hold the center, is coming first. In other words, already my first immediate threat is to play b4. The knight is going to have to move. And little Susie on e4 is bye-bye. It's just I'm taking the pawn for nothing and attacking the queen on top of everything. So now white has to start playing very sheepishly. He could play bishop f3, then of course bishop to b7, developing the last minor piece towards the center. I think that black is just sitting very pretty here. I don't know how the game continued, but we'll figure it out very shortly. He played, this happened actually, bishop f3, sorry, bishop b7, that's logical. And now very, very concerned about the move b4, he played the move a3. As a rule of thumb, and again, I don't mean in every variation ever in the Sicilian, but as a rule of thumb, if black has a pawn on b5 and white has a pawn on a3, black won the battle. Because if you wanted to stop b5, then you should have played the pawn to a4 and cut the pawn back before he gets to advance. Now black has several good plans. Let's see what he chose. I'm thinking to myself, well, the computer says knight c5, but I have to tell you that I would have played the move knight b6. Huh? You did? I like it.
There were 3 games played with knight c5.
Yeah. Yeah, actually serious players also playing with the black pieces. You know, gotta compliment knight c5. So knight c5, yeah, I wasn't sure what's gonna happen after e5. But the computer really likes, he's suggesting knight e4, okay. So here's my concern. I usually, notice the queen c7, knight d7, d6, they are designed to stop a mysterious advance here. After this move, I was a bit concerned what happens with this, because notice that the queen now is a bit overloaded. It's taking care of e5 behind its pawn, but it's also babysitting the bishop on b7. But evidently here there's not much concern because the computer suggests this, this, and this. And again, just by looking at the position, you can tell that black is in really good shape. The e5 pawn is isolated. The black pieces are swarming the center. The king looks very, very safe. And all the business is on the center move queenside, where of course black has an advantage. Yeah, black is assessing this position as black is almost up a pawn. That is very nice. Very easy to understand. White is just completely discombobulated here. Okay, so that did not happen, or did it? What happened here? He played queen to e1. No. Oh, because you played knight b6. I'm sorry, I forgot. You didn't play knight c5. Okay, so knight b6. Oopsie. Knight b6. To me, this is a very, very logical continuation. I'm interested in putting my knight on c4. My knight on c4 is going to hit the bishop, the queen, and pawn b2. Very hard to disagree with that kind of a setup. Really, really going to like it. Okay. The computer suggests rook a d1 with the idea of queen c1. I'm pretty certain, again, that anybody that sees it after rook d1, knight c4, queen c1, the queen on c1 is just not leaving a good impression. Black is clearly superior in that position. All right, so let's see what happened. He played bishop to, is it f2?
Yeah.
Bishop f2. Okay. And you continue with knight c4, I'm assuming? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And queen c1? Or is it e1?
C1.
Queen c1. All right. Now black is really in good shape. But we have to consider that at some point there's going to be, the knight might be chased later, so we have to pay attention to that. Right now I don't think it's the case because the knight on c3 is going to be left undefended. So that gives me at least one move, but I can play lots of useful moves here. My favorite move would have been to play one of the rooks to the c file. This way I'm threatening knight takes b2, and okay. I see the computer is also agreeing. And notice that the computer, who before thought knight c5 was superior to knight b6, now all of a sudden he is back into, he's conforming again. So rook a c8, very nice. Black is really sitting pretty. Let's see. So he played knight d to e2. Okay, everybody saw the threat. Knight takes b2, queen takes b2, queen takes c3, extra pawn with a better position. And of course this knight on c3 can't really afford to run away because pawn e4 is babysitted. So now everything is cramped. The knight is defending the knight, that's defending the pawn. Needless to say that I would rather be black in that position. Okay. Again, a moment of crisis in the position. And I'm a big believer in the statement, if black gets to play d5, then he has solved his opening problems. Now, of course, when I say play d5, there's got to be that little asterisk saying that and get away with it, right? It's like otherwise, I can also play d5 in any position, but then I can lose it also. But here I see no reason not to play d5. What does the computer say? The computer says d5. And the computer also likes rook fd8, also a logical move. The last, okay, this is developed, this is developed, this is developed, this is developed. Only the rook on f8 is a bit sleepy. Rook d8, and of course d5 seems to be almost inevitable. But I'm really dying to play the move d5 now, just shutting this bishop out, just breaking in the center, getting this bishop alive, making more pressure on the queen side. So it's looking good. Did you play d5?
I played rook f8.
Okay, I mean, I can't really complain about that move. It's like, normally d5 is like a really good strike in the center. I don't even know what he's going to do in this position. The point is, normally e5 is the slap, but you can see that I can jump right in.
I wasn't scared of a5. I just thought that I wanted my rook. I just thought that I wanted my rook on the d file
Before d5.
before d5.
Yeah, I don't know if it really makes a big difference. Let's take a look. So he played here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, I see at least one difference. And I had to cheat, actually. I looked at the computer before I had a chance to think for myself. He can play b3 now. After d5, he could not have played b3.
Yeah, knight a3.
Yeah, first of all, he has to worry about me taking on e4, right? D takes e4 looks just horrendous, taking the bishop afterwards. Do you see what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the position prior. Here, if I play d5, if white tries to play this move, well, there's like about million wins here. Every move wins. Starting with this. This must win at least upon look at the computer. I mean, white is not down a piece, but the computer says that he's worse than down a piece.
But he is down a piece, right? Because...
Well, I can take on c3, right? On c4.
Oh.
But this is just horrendous. This is just, you don't, it's really, analyzing this is just futile because it's just horrible. So the point was, now we understand the urgency of d5. When rook d8 was played, then white had the time to play the move b3. Not that this is a pretty picture, but it's not as bad as it could have been, I suppose. Okay, so now you played.
Did the opponent play?
Oh, he didn't play b3. Oh, wow! How could he have passed on this move? I thought the whole point of playing this move was to play b3 as well. Huh. Wow, very interesting. Well, this would have been, of course, more challenging. He sends the knight back. Then the queen can come from its shelter, maybe queen e3 or something. And look, it's obvious that black will always be better because of the fundamental weaknesses of white on the queen side. And black is not facing an attack at all, at least not yet. And d5 is really at any move. So, yeah?
Here, can I play knight takes a3?
Okay, so knight takes a3.
Do I win a pawn?
Okay, so rook takes, then b4, and... Huh. All right, so let's see, okay, let me see. If I go here, 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 is this move? Well, the community is not impressed by this idea. But black was always better. I think black was 0.60 in the other variation also. Oh, here he says rook d1. Basically, he wants to say, okay, you have an extra pawn, but it's here. It's vulnerable. It's always subject to falling. And white just keeps on playing, and he's defending, very interestingly, the pawn here. This is weak. So, of course, black is better, and he has an extra pawn, half a pawn. But notice how the assessment dropped down a little bit. It's like 0.4 or something, and now it's even 0.3, yeah. It's understandable, because, I mean, you're not going to queen this pawn. That is the problem. So, realistically, if you compare this position, we'll call it position A. And if you just retreat, I mean, any retreat is just going to maintain your advantage. Because d5, again, unstoppable. Unstoppable, then again, e5, the knight just hops in to e4, and we're not afraid of a capture. So, our opponent didn't do it. What did he do? Rook d1 or something? Yeah. Okay, rook d1. Okay, so again, d5. Did you play d5? Yay. d5 came in. Very good. Black is taking over. I like that. So he took. And I have to say that now the computer suggested a move that I didn't see. Oh, he changed back to e takes d5. But for a moment he was suggesting bishop c5, bishop to c5, which would have been like, wow, really interesting. But I have to stop and explain that move, even though it's not the main move right now, but it's what, oh, now it is the main move again. And the point is that it looks like white keep taking stuff, but I think that after a check here, followed by queen check on the diagonal, the white king is going on a trip that he's not gonna like so much. So you see, for example, well, now he's back to ED5, but doesn't matter. Let's just examine this. And here, this has to be just horrible. I guess takes, just to explain, takes, and check perhaps here. Yeah, that looks good enough. Yeah. I know why I want to be in this position. The white king is going to travel either to G3 or to E1. If you go to F1, 93 check looks like curtains. Yeah. Obviously, look at the black pieces, look at the white pieces. Look at the space advantage, and this king is sitting on a lawn chair somewhere, and this guy is like in the open, in the breeze. Not good. So back we go. And he says ED5. And you played ED5 as well, right? Or yeah. Very, very good. Okay. Well done. Now your opponent goes on and now he does B3. Hard to believe that this move can be right here. Hard to believe. Yeah. Listen, he needs to at least, the one benefit that he got from this sequence, even though black opened all the lines and the bishop is going to jump here and the knight is going to jump here, and of course it's obvious that black is better, but at least white got a little gift here that he can put one of his pieces, maybe his knight or bishop, I don't know. What does the computer say, by the way? Oh, he wants both. Okay, but both he says black is better, obviously. After bishop d4, bishop c5. Again, that square is not as influential as all the lines and the knight coming to e4 and that pretty knight sitting on c4. Very, very good for black. Instead he decided to do this. This has to be a blunder, right, of some sorts, no? Wow, and the computer doesn't like to take on a3. I thought that the whole point was to take on e3.
That's what I did.
And you did that. Yeah, but that's what looks like the most normal. But the computer says, you know what, chill out with that, just go knight d6 and knight e4. And the rook comes to the open file and life is just grand. Okay, so again, black is better in all those variations. After knight d6, the computer is just so completely crazy about the position. But I want to see why this was not good. Okay, so, he took, and b4. Did he move rook a4? Yeah, and takes. I thought that this is actually an improvement to the variation before because you have another d pawn here, and okay, but we'll see what happens. Of course, black is still better. There's no question about it. Oh, maybe bishop d4 now is a bit annoying. Bishop d4, bishop c5. Now, black is better, but I guess the computer doesn't appreciate this pawn so much because even though it's an extra pawn, it doesn't, again, not going anywhere. And this needs some babysitting. And so notice that the computer, who is notoriously material greedy, is preferring not to take the material, not to win the pawn, just retreat with the knight to emphasize the center control. Just leave that rook in his oblivion back on a1 as opposed to being active here. So he's assessing white's activity as compensation for the pawn. Okay, that's interesting. It's hard to disagree. So what did he do? Usually I'm pretty good at deciphering score sheets, but this one is tough. Okay, maybe this is knight e4. It's possible. So you did play knight e4 first. But now it's white to move. White played knight d4. Sorry. And then here. Like that? Okay, I'll see it. If it doesn't work, then I'll show you the score sheet. Okay. Ah, so this is the position, and now you went here. Ah, okay. That's different. That's different. That's also very good for black. Okay, now you went here.
And then I played g6.
Okay. Oh my God, but knight d2, yeah. What does the computer say? The computer, oh my God, knight d2 is just winning. Oh my gosh. Huh. Yeah, that's a hard move to meet. Knight d2 is really hard to meet. Did you consider it at all, or?
No,
No, it's not a very intuitive move, but look at this guy. If he would have played here, what exactly is he doing?
I don't know.
Now, the immediate threat is to play, among other things, is g6. Also, this move is to contend. I'm not even talking about knight takes f3, completely spoiling the haircut here. You know, it's going to look like a really funny pawn structure with a pawn on, from g2 going to f3. So, of course, black is just totally winning. This is just really easy. Okay, so in the game g6, okay, new main line. The funny thing is that it's like, no matter how many slight inaccuracies, this is still so much better for black fundamentally that white cannot. I think that in the long run, white is going to lose anyways. So I think that we have it right now. g6, bishop takes something.
C5.
Oh, well, isn't he losing something? No, I think he had to have played knight d4 or something, no? Why didn't he just go back knight to d4? Yeah, of course his position is miserable, but this is the, you know, that's the stew that he cooked for himself. What can you do? Okay, so he just decided to give you more stuff. So bishop takes, of course. Maybe he expected queen takes knight d4 and everything is cool. He forgot that the knight goes backwards. Now that's going to be expensive. That's going to be very expensive. Okay. Now there's only thing that I don't understand now. After knight takes e5, why did the game lasted so many more moves after that? He didn't resign? Okay. So here he played knight to d4.
Okay.
Takes, takes. Did he go rook e8 like you're supposed to? No, queen b6. Okay. The computer is not too mad about that either. Queen b6. Queen e3. I guess to get rook e8 with a tempo. Rook in d3. Wow, you would have had to pay me not to play rook c4 here. What did you do? Yeah, this is like a move that kind of begs to be played. Oopsie. Sorry. Okay, black is crushing. Okay, the rest we're looking for historical value only. He played h3. Not my favorite move, but what can you do? And you took here?
No, I played rook c.
It says you take something, maybe rook a4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You're not going to see me complaining. So you took here, and you played rook c8. I'm not really analyzing this very carefully because it just makes no sense. I mean, why could resign here with a clear conscience? He is down material. He has no position, no compensation. It just, I think he's playing like by some sort of inertia. Maybe because, is this like time trouble or something? Or?
Yeah, this is 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. Only thing is that he has no position left. So, oh no, not this move. You went here.
Yeah.
Okay, I suggest c3, no? Okay, so you did c3. And now you played queen c5. Okay. Why not do it with a cheaper piece like that and then take here?
That was what I wanted to do first, but I thought queen c5 would be.
I'm being very picky because every move wins. But it's just that this move looks economical. So queen c5, king h2. Yeah, probably not the best move in the world, but what can you play? Rook takes c3. Do we have to see the end?
I guess not.
All right, we'll do it in speedy fashion. Queen d2. At this point, I usually stop because this is just like, you know, cruelty to animals. So here, and he played knight to b3.
Yep.
And you played queen to c7. Queen b6 makes more sense. Hit the knight, no? But again, I'm being super picky. Bishop takes d5. Knight.
Bishop takes d5.
Oh, you took on d5. Okay. Queen takes d5. Everything wins. Queen takes f4. Check. And he played king h1. Rook a3.
Like
Yeah. In this position, there's a very famous grandmaster by the name of Roman Djindjikashvili. You must have heard of him. He has a very good quote that's very valid here. He said, "I'm looking, but I can't find a move that doesn't win." So he was very sarcastic, of course. And of course, this is one position like that. So he played knight to d2.
D4.
Oh, knight d4, and you took it.
Yeah. I stopped writing because on whatever, a minute or something.
Oh, I'm just confused by why do you take it?
Well, what I thought was
He has too many pieces in the game. We have to reduce the material, or what?
well, what I was thinking was, I don't know. I don't have a lot of time, so I might.
You want to technically win an easily won rook ending instead of having to think.
Right.
Instead of worrying where this knight is going to go and how he's going to fork you,
So I could.
you're going to invest it and then march the a pawn.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is a bit hard to resist, especially when there's a queen trade coming.
Right.
So it was here, here. I'm sure you took, and then what I would just do is just push the pawn, like push,
Yeah.
bring it here all the way to here. Then I bring my king over, and very hard not to win this. And I don't see. What was the result? You won, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I won.
Good. Very good. That was a pretty lively game, I have to tell you. The guy played a very bad opening. This is a good lesson that in the Sicilian, you cannot sit idle by. This is like, it's again, even if you don't castle on opposite sides, it's some sort of a race. White is controlling the center of the king side. He has to do something very active there. Black is trying to hold the center, normally not really initiate much because it's hard. He doesn't get d5 so easily, and move on the queen side. Here, black basically got everything. And at no point, if I go back, if I use the bar to go back, at no point am I seeing the black king in any danger. Not from the opening, and like sometimes you see position where there's like pawns advancing, g4, g5, f5, and we're like, wow, what about g6, what about f6? Here there was nothing 6. There was not even a 5, so yeah, that's not a way to play this Sicilian. Your opponent, well, Not-Julian, whoever that was, didn't play well. All right, good game. Very good.